Did you expect these results?
Very much. In fact, I had predicted that Trump would win at least 312 seats. And in fact, he may come a little bit less than that. And I had in fact also equally predicted that the election results will not linger for too long. So I absolutely anticipated a fairly decisive victory.
Just to concede that point to you, because even 2 weeks ago, when we were speaking about the US elections, you seemed very confident that this is a Trump election. You didn't think that this was a close election at all, despite what the pollsters were saying across spectrum. So how were you reading the tea leaves compared to all the others? What were the 4 or 5 factors that you think made it a Trump election?
So I think, look, at the end of the day, the fundamentals of this election favored Trump. So if you look at the economy, the simple question, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago, right? You cannot objectively answer that. People dealt with inflation easily enough. So first and foremost, over the past 4 years, you've had an average increase in price of at least 20%, and the real wages have really not kept up with that. So what you saw as a result of that was the working class people feeling left behind. On top of that, there was immigration, and people tend to look at immigration from a cultural standpoint, but immigration also has, again, an economic consequence to all the working people. It means some of the jobs that they could be doing is taken by people that newly arrive into this country and who do the job for a lower wage, further depressing their own economic livelihood. I think the third part of it, and this played out quite importantly, was the woke cultural agenda. And the whole transgender issue became a big election focus. It was a key advertisement theme. And the whole notion of young kids being more freely allowed to change their gender, I think it had a very, very subtle impact. It played a big role 3 years ago in the context of the Virginia election. And so the whole notion of transgender people competing in women's sports was another silent issue. But to some extent, people talked about abortion. That was a sleeper issue. And that's what Trump actually quite masterfully threw support behind IVF and basically said that the whole issue of abortion is going to be decided at the state level. And he basically said there will not be a federal ban on abortion. So I think he kind of, at least, even though that was an issue that favored Kamala Harris, he pretty much at least tried to mitigate it rather than doubling down on that. So I think what people tend to do is, again, view the elections from the context of identity politics. But very often it is the more basic of your economy and whether you're feeling better today and how much you are integrated into the opportunities. I think those tend to play a very prominent role. And I think that's why you see a very broad coalition of voters supporting Trump in this election.
Right. And Mahesh, the other thing you told me is that this time we'll have more Indian Americans voting for Republicans, that is Trump, than they did before. So Indian Americans, you're an Indian American yourself, they have traditionally been Democratic supporters. So what are the factors, to your mind, which is now leading Indian American voters to the Republican camp?
So I'll say that, for instance, even in my family, the vast majority of Indian Americans would probably support Kamala Harris. And in fact, we have what's called the TDS, the Trump derangement syndrome, that afflicts a lot of the people pretty broadly across. Again, I'm not speaking about that in the context of just my family members or the Indian Americans, but that typically is because people, and again, and we also know, Sri, that I tend to be very cynical about the media coverage. A lot of the whole narrative about Trump is very often peddled by the media, and many people definitely lap it up. Now, nobody can say that Trump's style is going to be appealing to a broad array of people. He can be coarse at times, and therefore that can legitimately be seen as not presidential. But while that is a credible view that his detractors offer, many others on the other side, many other people are equally taken into what they perceive as a very authentic style. And then, to whatever extent the Democrats try to label Trump as a fascist, as a Nazi, as a Hitler, whatever it is, what also worked in Trump's favor was his record of his 4 years. So even while the Democrats were trying to paint a caricature of Trump, in the end, all that Trump and J.D. Vance had to do was, don't take their words. Look at what we did in the past 4 years. He was the first president over a span of 80 years who did not initiate a new war. And that became a very powerful, and while he was a president,
Okay.
he went to North Korea. He had a good relationship with Kim Jong-un. One of your previous guests spoke about Russia. And it's not like, even though the common caricature was that Trump is very friendly to Russia, he still had a fairly robust policy that contained Russia. So it was more peace. And in the current geopolitics, I think people like
Okay.
that type of an approach.